Now, oh, this is wonderful. First of all, the great Steve Hilton, host of The Next Revolution on Fox News. Steve Hilton, this is a fabulous story. Brown bags, plastic bags, hundreds of thousands of euros in cash, bribes to socialists from the European Union Parliament, which is kind of a joke to begin with. You cover that. You know all about this stuff. What do you make of it?
I do. By the way, just before we start, Larry, I just want to say, I think having heard your earlier discussion with Kevin Cramer, my next goal is to make it to the list of the senator's favorite Steves. That's my goal. I want to get into that list. See if I can do it
We can do that. We can do that.
Exactly. Now, look, you're right. I mean, it is just hilarious. I've worked with them from inside the EU when I was working in 10 Downing Street. Look, the thing is that no one should be surprised by this. This is a very visible example of what goes on the whole time in the EU. The whole place is one of the most corrupt institutions I've ever come across. And so here you have, there's a phrase in one of the stories covering this which just stood out to me, describing it as illegal lobbying. Yeah, because most of the lobbying that goes on is perfectly legal. It's legalized bribery. That's what happens. You've got all these interest groups, you've got industry lobbying organizations, you've got individual countries all lobbying for their interest groups, their unions, their on and on it goes. The bribery goes in. It's legalized bribery. In this case, it was illegal. That's why it's come to light. But the whole thing is a racket. That's what it's all about, dividing up the spoils. And the lesson from it all is that you get this kind of behavior when government gets too big and micromanages so many aspects of life for individual industries and countries, when it's so important that you have to try and influence it in this way. And so that's the problem with the EU generally. It's just got too big and too intrusive into the daily affairs of a whole continent.
Well, so the Qataris, there's some great stuff in here. I'm reading from the New York Times account. They're looking at offices and homes, residences. There's one bag with 600,000 euros in cash in the possession of one suspect. There's another one of 150,000 euros in cash in the home of a European Parliament staffer. Several hundred thousand euros, this is the best one, several hundred thousand euros, Steve, in a suitcase in a Brussels hotel room, okay? The leading here, I guess the leader is from Greece, Eva Kaili, who's the vice president of the European Union. I guess she's the head socialist in this. I don't know if it's all about socialists. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know what the Qataris want, but I'm just impressed with all this cash, you know? I mean, Europe may look poor, but just look, when it comes to bribery, look at all this money, hundreds of thousands of euros. I'm very impressed with that.
Exactly. There's definitely a pro-growth agenda going on when it comes to bribery and corruption. There's a huge uptick in that.
Yes. Now, can I just switch gears for 1 minute? In London, you've got this new Tory government, which is increasing spending, increasing taxes, and stopping any fossil fuel fracking and so forth. It's the exact opposite of what Liz Truss wanted. What's going on here with the Tories? The Tories sound like Labour.
It's totally inexplicable. I've asked so many friends over the past few weeks, like, what is going on? What are they thinking? So if you go back to the Liz Truss agenda, you and I talked about this. It was a pro-growth agenda. It was actually quite a moderate pro-growth agenda. It wasn't extreme. There were modest tax cuts. So most of the tax cuts were about reversing planned increases. There weren't even cuts at all. There was some deregulation, not nearly enough as far as many observers were concerned, but because they didn't implement it properly, the markets took fright, it got into a whole kind of media panic, and then she was forced to back down. Now, in response to that, they haven't just kind of reversed what she planned to reassure the markets. They've gone all the way to the other extreme with this kind of hair shirt austerity, with this kind of eye-watering spending that they're going to have to cut back on the health service, all these different things. tax increases, going ahead with a corporate tax increase at the very time when they're trying to make the UK, outside of the EU, after Brexit, a centre for international investment to grow the economy. They should be doing totally the opposite and basically positioning the UK, which was the whole idea of Brexit, as a kind of Singapore offshore from Europe, the place you want to be if you want to start and grow a business. They're going in the opposite direction. I genuinely don't understand it.
Well, there may be a lot of people in jail in Europe. They're going to have a lot of cash. I guess they'll lose all these euros being bribed. I don't know what the Qataris want. Britain's going in the wrong direction. The U.S. is going in the wrong direction. Steve, you and I got to put our heads together and straighten this story out.
We've got to figure it out, exactly.
We've got to figure it out. Anyway, thanks a million for coming on. Folks, you can get Steve on The Next Revolution every Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern on Fox.